All right, everyone, thanks for joining today. So today we're doing Boost Productivity with Bluebeam Revu tips and tricks. My name's Alex Butcher. I'm Senior Product Specialist at Advanced Spatial Technologies, Bluebeam Certified Instructor. So we're going to go through some different tips and tricks today. If I can just ask that everyone stay throughout the session, and then towards the end we'll have some time for questions. If anyone wants to unmute themselves then and ask or pop them in the chat, you feel free and more than welcome to. So just a little bit about AST. We're a software, hardware and services provider. We're obviously a Bluebeam Gold partner, Autodesk Gold partner, FM Systems Master reseller. We provide GoFMX, Dropbox for Business and Veeam backup software. For hardware, we provide Dell, HP and Lenovo, and also Apple computers customized to your requirements. And then we also have a professional services division that do drafting and a whole range of different services. Where can you find help with Bluebeam? Feel free to reach out to myself, Alex at advancedspatial.com.au. Give us a call on 300 672 888. Inside the actual software, the help menu has some really good resources. So under help and then help, there's an online help guide to pretty much everything that you can access inside the software. And then there's also launch review tutorials under the help menu as well, which will give you sort of breakdowns of different workflows inside Bluebeam. So today we're going to go through a few different tips and tricks to improve your different workflows and what you guys do in Bluebeam. So first we'll go through profiles and toolbars and customizing them to make your life a bit easier, some of the markup tools and how to use those better. We'll go through the tool chest, some measurement tools and document comparison, as well as a bit of document management or drawing management inside your documents. So like I said, if everyone can please just stay on mute throughout the session, that would be great. And then towards the end, have some time for some questions if anyone has any, and we can run through anything. All right, so I'm going to switch over to review now. Cool. All right, guys, so the first thing we're going to go through is profiles and toolbars. So everything with Bluebeam is customizable. It's designed to be customized to your requirements. So the idea is to make things nice and simple for yourself, so you're not looking for tools and you have the tools available that you need every day. Everyone uses the software in different ways, so what one person needs is different to the other person. So the best thing to do is customize it to how you need it and make it nice and easy for yourself. So all these icons on the left-hand side, these are called the panels in the panel access. If you right-click them, you can hide them. So you can get rid of ones that you don't need. So let me just go through and take out a few of these that we're not going to use today. The idea of doing this is just so you're not looking for tools all the time. You've just got it nice and simple for yourself. Oop. Hide that one, and we'll hide that one. Cool, and you can also drag and drop these, so you can detach them. So if you work on two screens, you can have a screen set up with all of your panels so you can see them all the time, or you can also drop them on the right-hand side as well. For myself, I usually just put the properties panel, which is this one here on this side, and I leave the rest on the left-hand side. If you're used to working with some of the older versions, by default, they used to have some on this side and some on this side. By all means, you can set them up like that. It's really just a personal preference of how you do it. One of the biggest tips and tricks you can use for that is to have panels that you use at the same time on opposite sides. If you're using things at the same time, obviously you don't want to have to keep continuously opening them and closing them every time you have to use a tool. So if you have them on separate sides, they'll stay activated as you use ones on the other panels. Whereas, let's say I'm using the search panel and then I need to do measurements, obviously it takes away the search panel. So it just makes your life a little bit simpler. The next part of this is just the toolbars. So under tools and then toolbars, you've got a whole range of different built-in toolbars. The status bar, the one at the top here, doesn't come turned on by default, but it is really useful and I'd recommend turning it on. So you hit this one and it pops up down the bottom here. It has all of the different snap to settings. So you can turn on a grid, you can snap to the grid, you can snap to content, or you can snap to markup. You've also got reuse markup tools. We'll go through what that does. It basically just means that when you're using a tool, you can continuously use it until you finish with it and you hit escape once you're done, rather than having to use it, go back and click it again, use it again. Just speeds up that process of repetitive tools. And then the last one is synchronized views down there as well. So that one's the status bar. There's a whole range of different built-in toolbars. All of these have access to different tools. Like if you do a lot of measurements, you can turn on the measure toolbar. If you use digital signatures a lot, you can use that. But you can also customize them. So if you go to customize here, you can customize any of the built-in toolbars. You can add all the different tools in there, or you can also create your own as well. So you can add a toolbar, call it whatever you want, and just start adding tools across. So to add tools under categories here, there's all of the different categories of tools, or if you go to all, it just has a list of every single tool that can be added to a toolbar. Not quite everything can be added. Basically anything that has a keyboard shortcut can be added to a toolbar. And then, yeah, once you're happy, just okay. What you can do with that is create sort of just one toolbar that has the tools that you use regularly in there, rather than having lots of these different toolbars turned on. You might use one tool from each toolbar rather than all of them. So if you create your own, you can extract those tools from those toolbars basically and just have the ones you need in there. Cool. So obviously, once you customize all those kind of things, move your panels around, turned on toolbars, you don't want to have to do that every time you open the software. It'd be a nightmare. So you save that into what's called a profile. So if you go under Review and then Profiles, you have 3 different built-in ones, and then you can add and create your own. So if you go to Manage Profiles down the bottom here, hit Add, give it a name. So I'm just going to call this Webinar, and OK. And everything that we've just changed and customized now saves into this profile. So every time I now open the software, it should open into this profile. You can create different profiles for different things you do. You don't just have to have one profile, obviously. So if you go to Review Profiles, I can switch back to the default profile again. I can switch back to my webinar one again. So you can have like different workflows that you do. You can have different profiles for those. You can also export profiles. So what a lot of companies do to standardize things is they set up one profile for the whole company. They then go to Manage Profiles, select the one and export it. Save it to wherever you want to save it. You can send it in an email, put it on a shared drive, however you want to share your files. Anyone that wants to use that just needs to double click it and it will import in automatically for them. So yeah, that is the profiles there. So moving on, I'm just going to open up a document. Give me 1 second. All right, so move on to some of the markup tools and some things you can do with them. So there's a whole range of different markup tools, obviously. I'm just going to show you some things to simplify your workflow today a little bit of how you do things. Just the first one, so typically a lot of people put clouds around things. Oh, sorry, I've changed a setting. That's made things go curvy. 1 second, guys, sorry. Cool, that's better. Okay, so yeah, typically you draw your cloud to make annotations. You can draw callouts, or a lot of people I notice as well just use callouts and highlight things that way. Let's say text goes in here. So obviously that's a 2-step process. You get your cloud, then you do your callout. They're not one tool. Like if I move the cloud, the callout doesn't come with it. So you run the risk of moving things and losing sort of where the information is supposed to go. If you send that off to someone, they might move it accidentally and not know what it's supposed to be pointing to. So you can use the Cloud Plus, which is this one here. And the shortcut for it is K on your keyboard. So if you press K, it will activate the Cloud Plus. So you can draw your cloud and it, sorry, accidentally right clicked. So you can draw your cloud and you can automatically place your call out, say for review. So you don't have to go back and click the call out again. It's all automatically thing. The good thing about that as well, if I go to move this cloud, it's one tool. So you're not going to lose what different parts are supposed to be associated to different things. One thing you can do with the callout, so let's say you've got one bit of text that needs to associate to multiple different clouds or multiple different items, you can add leaders to these. So if you right click your callout, you can add more leaders in all different directions depending on where you need them to go. You can also delete the leaders if you right click the leader, and it will just continuously delete those. You can actually also delete it down. If you decide you don't want the arrow, you can delete it back to a text box, and it properties change to a text box as well. So those are basic sort of annotation tools. A couple of other things you could do is bring images in. There's two ways of bringing images in. You can use the image tool in here, which will bring you to from file, pick the image you want, and you can draw it on there. Obviously, that's great if you've got one image. Let's imagine you've got 2, 10, 20 images. Obviously, if you bring all of those in, it's going to start clouding up your drawing. So you could use what's called the capture tool for this. This is a really cool tool. It just needs to be attached to a markup. Doesn't matter what it is. It could just be a line, could be a cloud, it could be another image. Doesn't matter what it is. You just right-click the markup. There we go. Go to capture. And you can either do from camera or from file. So if you're on site working with a tablet or an iPad, something like that, you can use this straight from there. So you can be taking photos and referencing them straight to your drawings, or you can go from file if you've brought them in from file. Select as many images as you want. There's no limit to it. Could be 2, could be 500. Hit open, and it loads in as this little camera icon that sits next to your markup. If you click that little icon, it'll pop up a window where you can scroll through your images. Obviously, you don't have to just use this for multiple images. If you want to reference just one image to a particular location or a particular markup or something like that, it's a really good way of doing it as well, rather than putting it on your drawing. Just attach as a sort of little reference like that. One thing to note with that, it's a feature that's only in Bluebeam. So if you're sending this drawing on to someone who has Adobe or whatever, they won't be able to see it if you just leave it as this. If you do want them to be able to see it, go to Document, Flatten, and you flatten the capture media as an attachment. Go to Flatten, and it switches to something like this. The icon just changes slightly, and basically you double-click that icon, and it's hyperlinked to this attachment. When you send it off, you don't have to send anything additional. The attachment will go with the file already. It becomes sort of a part of the file, and it just gives you this summary of them. Cool. I'm just going to unflatten that so that it's back to normal. Cool. So that's bringing images in. The other one that's really useful is replicating content. So to replicate content, you could just use your window snipping tool. The thing with the window snipping tool though is it's going to create raster files like this image. You know, if you zoom in, they're very, very blurry. You can't see things. Obviously, it picks up things like the background, so all that kind of stuff. So you can use the snapshot tool for this. So the snapshot tool is this one here. Its keyboard shortcut is G. So we hit the keyboard shortcut G, and then it basically just asks you to draw a box around what you want to pick. So we draw a box around it like that. When it goes blue like that, it's copying to the clipboard. So you just right click somewhere and paste, and you get your share. The cool thing about it, it's vector content. It keeps the vector of the PDF. So the lines are really nice and clear. It doesn't pick up the background, so you can see it's transparent when you put it over the top of something. You can also manipulate it, change its colors and all that kind of stuff. So if you right click this, you can change its color. Let's say we go down here, go to colorize, and we'll make a blue chair. And go okay, and it changes it to blue. So yeah, that's the snapshot tool. It's really useful for either replicating symbols, furniture, whatever it is. I've seen people use it to make basic amendments to drawings, like move a wall slightly further across or something like that. There's a whole range of different things you can use it to move doors and all that kind of stuff as well. So, you could raise like part of the content, use a snapshot to move it somewhere else. So yeah, that's the snapshot tool. Couple of other things with the markup tools, the shape tools in here. So just a couple of little tips. Let's say you're drawing a line, whether it's you're drawing a measurement, like a length or area or whatever, or just a basic line like this. If you're trying to draw a straight line, obviously it's very, very difficult just with freehand. If you hold shift, it will snap orthogonally, so 45, 90, 180. So that's a good way to hold a dead straight line. It will always draw like that. Then let's say you're drawing using the ellipse tool. To draw a perfect circle, you hold Control while you're doing it. Sorry, not Control, Shift as well. So hold Shift, you'll draw a perfect circle. And the same with the rectangle tool. If you hold Shift, you'll draw a perfect square. With the arc tool, if you just draw it normally, it does quite a strange arc. It's not very exact in any way. If you hold Control, Control doesn't do anything with that. Shift does a 90-degree arc, and then Alt does a 3-point arc. So if you're ever using the tools in Bluebeam, if it's not performing how you want it to, or you think it should do something different, hold either Shift, Control, or Alt, and either one of them will usually do something different. So it's just a little nice tip there, how you can use that. So that's the basic markup tools. We're going to go into the tool chest now. So the tool chest is this little toolbox icon in the panel access. It has some built-in tool sets, all these sort of architecture, contractor review, all that kind of stuff. They're not bad. They're built obviously by Americans, Bluebeam being an American company. So a lot of people find in Australia it's not the most useful tools for them to use because everything's sort of built to their standards and not ours. So you can turn those off if you want to. You just drop down where it says tool chest, you hit the ones you want to turn off. I'll leave on these two. So my tools is a bit of a special tool set. This one here, if you add tools into here, it assigns a number shortcut. So you see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's say I hit number 7, it activates a signature for me. So I can use that when I'm going through. You can also use recent tools. So recent tools, again, is another special tool set. It's just any tool you've used recently, pretty self-explanatory. So as you use tools, if you need to reuse them again, go into recent tools and it'll be there. You can also create your own tool set. So if you drop down tool chests and go to manage tool sets and hit add, let's call this webinar. There's a couple of options. You can make it display, show in all profiles, and have a relative path. So you can play with those settings depending on what you want. Hit OK and OK again, and it will pop up like that. There's a few different ways you can add tools to your tool chest. You can right-click them, go add to tool chest, and add to webinar. You can do it through the properties panel here. Down the bottom, you should have an option that says add to tool chest. And go to webinar and it'll pop in there as well. And the other thing you can do is also click and drag them from recent tools. There is 2 different modes a tool can be in the tool chest. So I'm just going to add something like this in shape markup. Not every tool can be in the 2 different modes. Some of them can only be in what's called drawing mode, like these snapshots here. They will only go into drawing mode, which means it draws exactly the same as how it's been saved. This one here is currently in drawing mode, so it will draw exactly the same as how it's been saved. If you right click, you can go to properties mode, which means it will keep the same properties. So let's say you change the color, all that kind of stuff, then you add it to your tool chest. If you keep it in properties mode, you can keep those same colors, opacity, all that sort of stuff. And then when you go to draw it again, you can draw it with different shape, size, all that kind of stuff. Tool sets again can be exported, shared around. So say one person in your company's created a heap of different tools to this little button here and hit export. It'll ask you to save it, hit OK, and then you just save it to your desktop or whatever, wherever you want to save them to. You can send it in an email, put it on a shared drive, however you want to share them. And again, same as the profiles, they just need to double click them and it will bring it in for you. Cool, so that's the tool chest. I'm going to go into the measurement tools quickly as well. So I'm just going to delete some of this stuff off for now. Sorry, let's unlock that so I can get rid of it. Let's just delete this stuff off. Cool. So most of the measurement tools are in the measurements panel here. You can use them from the toolbars. The good thing about using them from the panel here is you can customize their properties and that kind of stuff before you use them, which usually makes things a bit easier. You've also got access to more tools in here, calibration and all that kind of stuff as well. So before you do any measurements, obviously it's very important to calibrate. If we don't calibrate, the measurements aren't going to pick up correctly. If you're on, I think it's 2019 or above, it will auto prompt you to calibrate before you do a measurement anyway, so it's not a huge deal anymore. But if you're using some of the older versions, it won't do that. So it's always a good habit to calibrate anyway. Sometimes you may get some drawings that have already been calibrated, but the person that's done it may have done it incorrectly. Hard to tell, so it's always a good sort of practice to just sort of do it yourself again anyway. So we hit calibrate and OK. So we select 2 points of a no dimension to calibrate the measurement tools. Hit OK and click the first point of our scale. And you can click the second point and choose your units in 2800. You can set your scale for a current page. You can set it for all pages, or you can even do a custom range now. So when you do your custom range, there's a little example of how you can write it. So let's say you want, pages 3 to 5. That would be 3, 4, and 5. You go 3-5, or if you want a select few pages out of the sets, you put 1, 5, 7, whatever it is, and it will pick those up. You can also add scales to your preset scales now as well. And you can set your precision in here. So however many decimal places you want your measurements to go to. And we go apply scale. And you should see the numbers in here update and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so with the measurement tools, there's a few different ones in here. I'm going to go through 2 different parts of what you can do. So you've got a length tool, you've got a poly length tool, you've got a perimeter tool, you've got a area tool, then you drop down here, you've got a polygon cutout and ellipse cutout. So when you do an area, you can cut out sections from that area. Like let's say, for example, if I do an area of this meeting room, I can cut out that section. You can do diameter, angle, radius. You can drop down. You can also do a 3-point radius. We've got a volume tool. We've got a count tool, and we've got dynamic fill. So first thing I want to show you is using the area tool. So let's say we do the area here. Subject is area measurement. Places meeting room. It's always good to subject and label what you're doing with your measurements so that when you go into the markups list, I think it's really easy to find and easy to sort through. You can set a depth. I'm going to set my depth to 2400. Obviously, we're doing an area, but we can get a lot more from that. So you can set a slope if you know you're on a sloped surface, if you're measuring the area of a roof or something like that. You can also set your units for length, area, and volume. Setting it for length is a new thing in one of the later updates of Review 20. If you haven't updated and you don't see that option, in the past it's based on whatever you calibrate with, but now it's independent, which is great. You can also turn on segment values. So when we do the area of this room, it will give us the individual segment lengths of each of these sides as well. And then under this one here, you've got show caption. So you can turn on some different information. So that's where the depth comes into it. Obviously, we're doing an area measurement. We don't need a depth. When we're talking about depth in this case as well, we're talking about depth into the page. Obviously, in a physical sense, where it would be the height of the building when we're looking at a bird's eye view floor plan. In this sense, we're talking about the depth into the page, and what they call height will be the sort of height side of that shape of what we're looking at. So I'm going to turn on length, which will be the total perimeter of this, and I'm going to turn on wall area and volume. And then OK, and then I'm just going to click and hold and drag across here, and I'll get my area. So obviously it gives us all these things. If you hold shift over and click and drag the title of the measurement, didn't work that time. Hold shift and click and drag the title. You can move the title without moving the whole measurement. You can also make the text smaller. Let's say make that number 6 so that it fits in and it's not so invasive. Did it again. Got to be a little bit particular when you hold shift and drag the titles. You've got to actually get some of the text, otherwise it drags the shape. Obviously, if you move your area measurement, you just Control Z to undo and then try again. So it tells me we're in the meeting room, for the length, area, volume, and a wall area of all those things. If I want to use that cutout tool to cut that out as well, we'll go to Polygon Cutout. And you see the shape where we can cut out from highlights blue, and if you don't have anything to cut out, the little stop thing comes up. Snap to that point. I always go outside of what I'm doing, otherwise it leaves the actual sides of the shape in as length. It's quite strange, and then that cuts out everything. you should see all of the numbers will just automatically update as well. Cool, so that's the area tool. A couple of things you can do with it. Obviously, you can save these to your tool chest as well. So I can right click that and save that to my tool chest webinar. And it pops up in there. I can put that in properties mode, and then I can reuse it again, and it brings up all that information for me. So obviously it means you don't have to turn on all that information all the time. If you want to use it for different things, obviously you don't have to set the label. You can set your label every time, or you can have it label different materials so that you can pick up the different materials and that kind of stuff in there. With these tool sets as well, if you drop down here, go to detail, you can see all of that information, the subject and label, and all that kind of stuff. So cool. So the next thing I'm going to show you is dynamic fill. So this is something that came in 2017. It's really, really useful tool, and not a lot of people know that it's even there still. And if they do, a lot of people don't know how to use it as well as it can be. So under this drop down on the end of the measurements panel, there's this one here. It's called dynamic fill. So it looks like a glass that's half full. If you click this one, it brings up a little toolbar. What this is really, really good for, let's say this reception area here where we've got a curved surface, right? We want to get the area of this room, but obviously with a curved surface, it's quite difficult. So traditionally what people do is click points around the curve until they get pretty close to it so that it's fairly accurate. Obviously it takes a lot of time. It's easier to miss the points. You could end up with quite inaccurate results. And the biggest thing is it just takes a lot of time. So with dynamic fill, what we've got to do is close in the shape first. So we hit this one here to add a boundary. You see my boundary is quite small. You can make that bigger and smaller in here. I've got mine set to default as quite low. By default, usually it sits at 100% in the middle there, and it's quite big. So usually it depends on your page size though as well. If you're dealing with really large page sizes, it's not a big deal. You usually want it to be bigger, but for me, I'm going to leave it as small. You can also change the fill size and all that kind of stuff too. So add a boundary across here, click the first point, click the second point, hit enter, and it closes off the shape. And then we go to the fill painter here, and we click and hold, and it just fills up the shape. And anything that's enclosed in the area usually won't automatically fill up. Sometimes it will break through very thin lines inside shapes and that kind of stuff. So, but if they don't, you just go over them quickly and it fills those up for you. Then you choose the tool you want. So you can choose anything from here. You can draw shapes as well. You can draw spaces, and all these little arrows that drop down here have things from your tool chest. So if you have particular measurements with different information saved into your tool chest, let's say I want to use that meeting room area measurement that I created before, for example, I can click that, activates that area measurement, hit apply, and you get your measurement. All it does is very similar to what you would do the manual way, is pick up lots of control points along the line as close as it can to get a curve. It just saves you going through and clicking all of those control points, and it does it a lot quicker for you. The other thing you can do with it as well, I'm just going to close that down, is use it to get the length of curves. It doesn't have to be in an enclosed room, obviously. Let's say we've got some curved piping, for example, that we need to get the length of. So I'm just going to deactivate that one, and I'm going to go back to my add boundary. This time though, instead of adding boundaries across here, let's imagine that this isn't a wall of a room, it's just in free space. So obviously we need to add boundaries around it. So if I add some boundaries around here, pretty close to that, and then switch to my fill painter again, click and hold, and it fills up that little shape. Then instead of using area, I'm going to use the perimeter tool, which is this one here, and I'm going to go apply, and it gives me the total perimeter of that shape. Now to separate that and just get the length of the curve, what I'm going to do is right click that control point and split, and then this one and split, and I can delete off these segments on the outside, and I've got the length of my curve there. So it's a really nice way of getting lengths of irregular shapes, curves, anything like that. You can use that tool, not just limited to irregular shapes. Let's say you've got to get the area of all of the office spaces in this building. You can close off all of the office spaces at once, fill them up, fill them up, fill it up, fill it up, hit your area and apply. You get all of them rather than doing everything separately. You can do it all at once, which is quite a nice way of using it as well. So that there is dynamic fill. The last part of the measurement stuff that I want to show you guys is searching and counting. So there's two ways you can count. You can count manually or you can count automatically. So you've got the manual count tool, which is in here. It's the last one here that looks like a little tally. We can go through and click all of my items in here until I find them all. I'm not going to go through and count them all that way because it takes quite a while. It's annoying. Obviously for this, there's not a whole heap of chairs. They're quite easy to see. It's not a big deal. If you're obviously dealing with quite a large plan, you're trying to find symbols or whatever it is, it can be a lot more difficult. So what we have is called visual search that we can use. So if I just delete these off. So in the search panel here, the one that looks like a little magnifying glass, you can go in here. We've either got text search or we've got visual search. So with the visual search, we hit get rectangle and zoom into whatever you want to pick up. Try and get your box that you pick up as close as you can to the shape. So try not to pick up too much white background and that kind of stuff. And also picking the symbol you pick up is quite important. Like if you pick up something that's got lines across it, like this one, it won't search as accurately. If it's got a lot of interference with it, it's just harder for the software to pick it up. So it's not a perfect tool. It doesn't work perfectly every time, but it'll give you a good estimate. And if you have a quick check over, usually you can see a couple that are missing, and we'll go through what to do with that. So once you're happy with what you picked up, hit search, or you can play with the sensitivity and settings in here as well. Sometimes it picks up too many results. If it picks up too many results, like sometimes it picks up things in free space that aren't actually there. So if that's the case, you just bring the sensitivity up a bit. If it's not picking up enough results, you bring the sensitivity down. It just depends on what you're searching for, the quality of the drawing and all that kind of stuff. So there's a few different options as well of what you can do. So you can either search current document, current page, or open documents, recents, or a whole folder. So you don't have to have the documents open. You can search through all of the documents in a particular folder for a certain item. For this example, we're just going to do current page though. So yeah, then you just hit search, goes through and brings up all the previews of what it found. It tells me down the bottom here, it's found 16 results in the document. And then select all, drop down this little check options button and go apply count measurement to checked, and you can pick any of the items. I'll show you how to create counts in a second as well in your tool chest, and you can also pick those. So you'll see it's gone through and it's picked all the chairs. Now, I've used this drawing quite regularly. I know there's 16 chairs in here, so it has found all of them. Some days it's a little bit temperamental. It picks up 15 chairs. If it does that, you just right click one of the ticks and go resume count, and you can add more to the group. And then once you're finished, you should see it says 18 in the group now. Similarly, if it picks up things that aren't there, right click them and delete count measurement from group. Delete count measurement from group, and it gets rid of them. To create counts in your tool chest, so let's say with that snapshot that we put into the tool chest before, right? So this chair here, if you right click it, you can go create count, and it creates a count tool. So now when I do my search and I'd go to apply my count measurement, you can see it pops up from the tool chest down here as well. So I can use that count measurement to place on them, and it places a blue chair on top of all of them. You can have different symbols. It could be a circle, it could be a square. Obviously, if you're doing a lot of counts and you need to distinguish between different things, creating more shapes makes that a lot easier. So cool, so that is counting. Just quickly before we do move on, I just want to go through briefly what the markups list is. I did mention it earlier. So down here, you should see a little blue line pop up when you hover down the bottom there. You can drag that up, and this is the markups list. It's just tracking of everything that you do in markups. So you can turn on and off different columns in here, depending on what you need. You can create custom columns, which are these down here to calculate costing under managed columns here. You can go to custom columns. You can create materials lists. You can create formulas. You can have numbers assigned. There's a whole range of different things you can do. To do it, you just go to add and create what you want to, choose what the type is, and then define a formula or a choice drop down or whatever it is. So yeah, that's the custom columns, and yeah, you can turn it off. The idea is to make this have the information that you need in there. You can order it by different things. Whatever you order it by will give you a total at the top of the column of whatever that particular item is. So it's giving me a total of all of the area measurements currently at the top here. It's 98.35. If I order it by author, it's not going to give me a title because it's got all different total, because it's going to got all different measurements in there. It does give me a total of the cost of everything. If I order it by label, it's going to order it by a label and group them in that way. So it just depends on how you want to manipulate it. You can export these summaries into either Excel or a PDF as well. And you can also filter out different things depending on what you need at different times. So it's just a little brief overview of the markups list. This is one of the most powerful things in the software. If you're not using it, I definitely recommend playing around with it, seeing what you can do with it. The information behind the markups is what makes the software as powerful as it is, and it's what sort of just makes your markups a lot smarter. To turn it on and off or bring it up and down rather than clicking and dragging up, you can hit these 3 lines as well, and it gets rid of it or brings it up. Cool, so that is the measurement tools, bit of the markups list as well for you there. So next thing, just quickly, is document comparison. So let's just close this down. And I'm going to bring up a couple of other drawings. Just bear with me for a second. Okay, so I've got 2 drawings here. This one here is the original. This one here is just the revised file. There's a few changes. You can kind of see with the naked eye, there's some rooms added, but there's a few other things in here, not so easy to see. So whenever you're doing this, it's usually a lot easier to just have the documents that you're comparing open and nothing else. And that way, when it goes into the selection, it's nice and easy. Traditionally, what a lot of people do, we find, is just split the documents and look at them side by side, or have 2 screens. You can click and drag one off onto your other screen. There's way easier ways to do it though. So if you go to document and then compare documents, this one here, by default, it will pick up as document A as the one you're looking at, so the active drawing. You obviously want that to be the original, and document B will be the one that's open, but the one you're not looking at. So it'll be that revised file or the inactive drawing. You can manually align them as well. So sometimes it happens where the content's moved a centimeter on the page between revisions when the architects or whatever have generated their files. So if that's the case, you can pick points, and it'll just ask you to pick 3 points on each drawing that are the same. When you're doing that, it's best to pick corner points of the content. Obviously, the corner points are a lot easier to pick up. Like, let's say you do the top left corner, bottom left corner, and bottom right corner. It's easy to remember as you go to the second one which points you've picked. If you do random ones, very, very difficult to pick. So yeah, that's aligning them. Works the same as well if you've got different size pieces of paper, like let's say one's on A1, one's on A3. Again, you just pick those points and it'll align them for you. Hit OK. Basically, it just goes through and puts a cloud around anything that's changed, brings them up next to each other. So on the right, it'll bring you the original file, clouds everything on the revised file, and it synchronizes the zoom automatically. So you can see, okay, cool, those rooms have been added, these little rectangles have been added, all of those section markers have been taken away. So yeah, it's nice and easy. All of those, because obviously they're markups in here, they go into your markups list. So you can create a report of this. Let's go to here, PDF summary, creates a report of everything that's changed for you. Only thing is with that, when you do it, obviously, when you create that report, it's going to have images of like these things here, but you're not going to know what's gone. It's just going to give you a cloud with nothing in it. So there is a way to sort of combat that, which we'll go through in a second. But yeah, basically that is the compare documents there. So just close this down and get back to one screen. So the other way to do this is overlaying. So if you just want a visual representation, overlaying is usually a lot easier. So again, you want the original to be the active one, the revised file to be the inactive one, document overlay pages. By default, it will bring up the one you're looking at in, it'll assign red to that one, and the one you're not looking at as green. So usually it's a good sort of mental association. Red is something that's been taken away, green is something that's been added. So, and similarly, you can align points with this if their content's out of line. For this as well, it's not just limited to 2 drawings. You could have 3, 4, 10, doesn't matter how many it is. As you keep adding them, it'll just keep assigning colors to them. So you can use it not just to compare revisions, but to find clashes in different disciplines. I know a lot of guys that do try and find clashes in HVAC and electrical things and stuff like that, like when they're doing home building and that kind of stuff, they just make sure the vents don't clash with all of their lighting and that sort of stuff. So there's a range of things you can do with it. With with the red and green, unless you're colorblind, I recommend leaving it as those. If you are colorblind, usually it's very hard to see the difference. I've only ever met one person that's told me they can't, and they haven't given me what's the best color yet. So I'll update everyone once I know. But yeah, if you change that green to something like blue, for example, when they go on top of each other, they become purple. And the blue and purple are very hard to distinguish between. With the red and green, when they go on top of each other, they go black, and the red and green are obviously very easy to distinguish. So hit OK. Basically, it's just going to put one in one layer, one in another layer, drop them on top of each other. Everything that's the same is black, everything that's added is green, and everything that's taken away is red. So it's really easy to distinguish between those things. So with this one, obviously they're not markups though, they're just in different layers. So if you go to the layers panel, you'll see the two different things. You can turn them on and off. You can just see the second, just see the first. We'll turn them both back on. So if you wanted to do a kind of report of it, you can't just get it from this, but you can use this to get it. So if you save this overlay file, I go to save as, and I'm just going to save it into my folder here. I save it in here. I'm just going to close down my revised file. So for this, what we're going to do, we're going to use the compare documents again, the first one we did, except with the original and the overlay file. So again, you want the original to be the one you're looking at. Go to document and compare documents. And it should pick up the original as document A and overlay as document B. Okay. So now what we get is the overlay file clouded. So anything that's clouded green is something that was added. Everything that's clouded red was something that was taken away. So now if I go to here and create a PDF report of this, I'm going to append and hyperlink it to the current PDF, and I'll just show you what this actually looks like. So go OK. Processes a report, takes a couple of seconds. Obviously, the more items you have, the longer it will take to process. So don't be, if you have 150 items in there, don't be mad if it takes a couple of minutes to process. Go make a coffee and come back, and it should be done for you. The quicker your computer is, the quicker it will process as well. So I'm just going to close this down so it doesn't synchronize. So yeah, now we've got on the end of that overlay file, we've got the comparison file. We've just got a report of everything that's changed. So anything that's clouded that's red, obviously it's red in the background there, that's something that was taken away. If I go into one of these pages, anything that's clouded that was green is something that was added. So you can send this report off to whoever needs it. It's nice and easy for them to distinguish those things. So that is comparing documents there. So one more thing we're going to go through, and then we'll get some time for questions. So thanks everyone for sticking with me. So the last thing we're going to go through is just a bit of document manipulation management kind of stuff. So let me just open up this here. Cool. So I've got a set of drawings here. Currently, the labels have already set. So I'm just going to clear all those labels so that I can show you how you can do that. So if I go reset all page labels here, this is how usually by default you will see drawings come in. When they're generated from wherever they're generated, they'll come in a set like this, or even in individual documents, and then you'll combine them together. And the page labels will just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Obviously, it's very, very difficult to navigate to what drawing is what. You have to go through, okay, cool, that's my E2.02. You have to actually go through and find them all. So there's a really easy way to set those page labels. If you hit this little button up here, it's called Create Page Labels. It looks like the little kind of half rectangle with a sun underneath it. Click this one, go Page Region here. You can choose your page range if you don't need to do it for all the pages or only certain pages. You can do that, and then go Select. And just go down to your title block. You pick up your sheet number, and then you can also add more regions. So let's say I want to add in the sheet title as well. Whenever you're doing this, obviously it's good to make it a little bit bigger, because you can imagine those sheet titles can get longer. Obviously, if you don't make it bigger, it's not going to pick up the whole title. And it gives you a little preview of what it's going to pick up. And then you hit OK, and basically just goes through every page and picks up that location on it. So, and that's going to relabel everything. So now you can see everything's just been relabeled to its correct labels. Now it's very easy to find things of what I need. You can use that to create a contents page. You can go into the bookmarks panel, which I hid. Go into here, bookmarks up the top there. It's got these bookmarks here. Let me just show you how to create them. So let's go like this and delete those. So to create them, you can go into here, create bookmarks. Yeah, create bookmarks. Do it by the page labels and go to all pages. Okay, and it creates all of the page labels for me. And then if I go to here and export bookmarks, you can go through it and choose where it goes and everything like that, but just leave it as it is. Go save, and it gives you a little summary like this, and these are all hyperlinked to all of the different documents. So if I go back to my document set, go into the thumbnails panel, and then I can right click and go insert pages, add open files because it's already open, and it brings our bookmarks file in, and I'm going to go before the first page, and okay. And now I get this contents page, which is hyperlinked to the particular drawings, which is really useful as well for navigating things. So yeah, that's creating page labels, really useful. The last thing I want to show you guys before we jump into questions is creating hyperlinks. So the feature I'm going to show you now is something that is only in the extreme version. You can create links manually in standard or CAD versions, but if you want to do them automatically, which is what we're going to do now, you need to have the extreme version. So to create them manually, you go to tools and hyperlink, and then you can pick your location of what you want to hyperlink to particular spaces. But if you want to do them automatically and you have the extreme version, go to batch, link, and then new. And add the open file, and next. We'll do it by page region and go select. And then we're just going to pick up what the sheet number is. Not the sheet title this time, just the sheet number. Again, just make it a little bit wider, so if they get longer, you can find them. And then okay. And then I'm going to go generate. What it's going to do is it's going to go through all the documents, and it's just going to find anything that has that, any of the sheet numbers inside the documents. And then we go run. For queries, that's fine. I'm just going to continue, and basically it just goes through and creates hyperlinks for all those little locations. So when you've got section markers that go to different sections, you can hyperlink to go straight to those sections. So it tells me it's created 37 hyperlinks, finish and close. Now, if I go to my drawing, let me just find one that has some links. I think this one here does. So you can see as I hover over that A6.01 now, it's going to link me to that A6.01. So I click that and it takes me to that section drawing. From this one here, have we got any links? No. Has this one got some? No. Not every page has links, which is okay. But a few of these do. So we've got some 6.01, so some other ones. Anyway, I can't find any more of them, but there's 37 links in there. So all of those actually things will bring you to fit to page as well. So yeah, it's a really useful way to be able to navigate around your documents. That feature is only in the extreme version. If you're dealing with really large document sets, it's something that's really, really useful. And obviously if you don't have it, you can upgrade to it. So it's always an option. So that brings us to the end of the tips and tricks, guys. I'm going to hang around for probably 10 minutes or so and answer any questions. If anyone has any, feel free to unmute yourself, or if you don't have a microphone, you can put it in the chat. But yeah, thank you very much for attending today, guys. And I just got a message. Will the recorded session be available to us for future references? Yes, so it has been recorded. We will edit it and put it on YouTube, and I'll send out a link to everyone who has attended once that's up as well. So anyone that missed it as well, or had to jump out halfway through, or only came in halfway through, you'll be able to go back and see anything. So yes, definitely, Richie, it will be available after. Cool. Does anyone have any software related questions? Anything I didn't go over you want me to go through? Feel free to ask them now. Misha has just asked me to go through creating a contents page with links again. Yeah, definitely I can do that. So to create the little contents page, so you've just got to set those page labels first, which we've already done here. Then you go to your bookmarks panel. Let me just delete those. Usually by default, you won't have these bookmarks set, so I'll delete those. Go here to create bookmarks. Use the page labels to create them, and OK. And then you get all of these different bookmarks. Go to bookmarks and export. Don't have to change any of those settings. Go save. And it saves it looking like this. Go back to your original document set. Go to the thumbnails panel, which is this one that looks like 4 little squares. And then thumbnails and insert pages. And add open files, which will add that bookmarks file, the other one that's open. Choose where you want to insert it. It's up to you where you insert it. If you've got a cover page, maybe you want to insert it after your cover page. I don't have one, so I'm going to make it my cover page. So I'm going to go before the first page and then OK. And it just adds it in. It looks something like that.
Great, thanks, Alex.
No worries. All right, does anyone else have any questions?
I've got a question.
Yeah, I can't quite hear you. It's very quiet.
Is that better?
Yeah, I can just hear you. That's okay.
Okay, I'll speak loudly.
That's better, yeah. Thanks, Heather.
If I have a hand-drawn curve with a whole lot of control points on it, is there a way of taking out sort of 3/4 of them in one go rather than right-clicking and deleting individual points?
No, I don't think there is. You have to right-click and individually delete them, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's one other question which is a bit preemptive because I haven't got it yet, but if you have a touch screen, is it fairly straightforward to draw up lines and things and curves on?
Yes, it is. From my experience, operating it with a touch screen is harder than using a mouse, but it's certainly possible. But yeah, I find it myself. I find it a lot easier to use a mouse to draw things with it. But by all means, it's definitely possible. A lot of guys use it on site with touchscreen tablets and that kind of stuff, either Windows tablets or there's an iPad version as well. So yeah, by all means, yes, you can definitely use a touchscreen for it.
I'm just very slow with mouse.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. I just got another one in the chat as well. Is there a way to set the default measurement unit? I would like it to be meters instead of millimeters. Good question, James. It's yes and no. Usually, so when you set it in here, right? So in your measurements, let's say I go to do a length measurement, right? When you set them in here, let's say to meters, usually once you use it a few times, it just sets there. It doesn't do it every time. I tested this not long ago with someone and we couldn't work out how to actually get it to do it, but I have got it to change in the past, and it's just by using it regularly in that, and then it eventually remembers it. I think when you save your profile, it does it. So if you set your length measurements and then save your profile, it should hopefully keep that setting. But it usually just takes a couple of times for it to remember it. It's quite strange. You would think there would be a simple way to just set the units. But yeah, it's usually just about using it a few times and eventually it will reset to meters. Like usually when I do an area measurement, originally by default, the area is set to square millimeters. The volume is set to cubic millimeters. So you end up with like trillions of numbers. It's a nightmare. So over time, as I've used this, I've set it to square meters and cubic meters enough times that it's just remembered it now. Don't ask me how it does it. It's very, very strange. But yes, eventually it will just set the default. The only other thing is whether it's set as inches, like the either metric system or imperial system, it's based on your region settings inside your actual computer settings. So if you're finding it set, all of these measurements are by default in inches and everything like that, you just go into your computer settings, find the region settings and change it to metric in there, and you'll be able to get there. Any other questions, guys? If you do think of any other questions after, guys, feel free to shoot me an email. Email's just alex@advancedspatial.com.au. I will, once we've edited the video and everything like that, we'll send out the link to everyone. So you'll get an email from me. You'll have my contact details and everything like that. Feel free to shoot your questions through anytime. Happy to help. But yeah, I'll hang around for a couple more minutes if anyone else has any questions. If not, thanks for attending, guys. And it's great to have a good turnout. Thanks, guys. I'm going to shut it off now. If everyone else has any other questions, feel free to shoot them through anytime. And if not, thanks for attending and have a great day, guys. See ya.